How's everybody doing?
Good afternoon.
Doing well, thank you.
Well, I'm glad to be spending time with you and just want to, turn it over and see, what thoughts you have and we can participate in a conversation.
Well, thank you very much for meeting with us, Representative Amo. We represent a diverse group of, Rhode Islanders who are very concerned about what's been happening in Gaza in the past 6 months. We do very much appreciate that you did voice, calls for a ceasefire, but we also feel like the actions that have happened since then just are not compatible with what you've said. If you look at the thousands of phone calls that have been made by constituents here in Rhode Island, your actions don't match up with what your constituents want. There was the uncommitted vote that should have given you a clear message about where especially young voters are heading. And we're here to just talk about solutions and what we would like to see moving forward to match up with your ceasefire that you called more than a month ago.
So, good afternoon.
What's your name?
My name is Omar Al Riyadi. Customary in our culture, we start with Salam Alaikum, which is peace be upon you. Because I want this to be a nuanced conversation, a conversation hopefully that can be peaceful. I work at the VA hospital. I'm a physician at the VA hospital. Just like you, I'm a public servant. My goal is my role is to help people in pain. And we've worked with your office and other representatives' offices on countless occasions where there's veteran complaints and constantly sending to you and other representatives. So again, I'm coming to you not on behalf of my organization, but on behalf of a citizen of Rhode Island, just like you are, sir. A man, just like you are, sir. A son of 2 immigrants, just like you are, sir. And more importantly, a human being.
Is there somebody joining? Yeah, you do. Oh, sorry.
Sir, born and raised here, just like a son of immigrants like you are. My family's from Gaza. My mother's side from Dir al-Balah. My father's side from Rafah. On November 7th, sir, an airstrike killed 21 members of my family. 2 weeks later, a second airstrike killed 23 more members of my father's side of my family. A few weeks beyond that, sir, 7 other members, when finally people were able to get in, were found under the rubble. 51 members of my family have been killed. Sir, I'm here to ask you to help end this madness. Enough is enough. Enough death, enough destruction. I'm asking you, sir, what is your reservation? What is the holdout? Why are you refusing to end this?
Yeah.
Sir.
Well, first, let me say I'm incredibly sorry for your loss. I don't think anybody should experience such loss of any type of this scale in any way. And frankly, I have no reservation about this ending. This needs to end immediately. My words are very clear. And are you recording them? You should just, generally speaking, tell someone when you're recording them. But it's okay, you can record me.
We can shut it off if you'd like.
No. I thought usually people, ask when, because we have 2 ways of consent.
Rhode Island is one party.
Sure.
Let's not argue. Let's have a
But again, I'm
conversation.
trying to have a civil conversation.
Yes,
That's
yes.
what I'm saying. But generally speaking, it's important to relay that. But that's okay. I have no reservation about this ending. I want this to end immediately. In fact, I have said repeatedly, if this is a matter of Israel and Hamas coming to the end of their negotiation to end this, it's madness. Nobody else needs to die here. It's why, as difficult as it has been to see this, I've persistently sought avenues to get additional humanitarian assistance. I was on the phone, a meeting with the members of the delegation to see with Adizia what we could do to get more in terms of nutritional assistance in quickly. I met, with the head, Maven Salem, to see what we could do to accelerate that. I've
I'm sorry
responded.
to interrupt,
May-
I have to say, this
Let-
is
let-
not.
hold on, let him finish, let him finish.
So, and I do want to say, I don't know if you've had this type of meeting with any other members of the delegation.
Yes.
Okay, and I would say I would treat me like you would treat them.
Which is,
All right,
Please.
because I'm a poor kid from a three-story
Um,
house 10 blocks away.
sure.
So I want us to be very respectful of one another. So what I would say is, that is something that I've done, and seeing what I could do. When I was with Samantha Power a few weeks ago, I didn't get to speak to her directly in the hearing, but said and submitted to the record, and I'm waiting for a response there, what they can do to accelerate support. So again, I hope you realize a few things. Humbly, I come to you as one of 435 members of the Congress. You all know that unilaterally, I cannot do a single thing on my own. But what I have done is use the tools that I have, which are my voice, my position, to communicate the things that I think we can do to end this as soon as possible and start for the day after, right? This isn't merely, from my perspective, a conversation that should stay mired in what we are experiencing right now, but is very much focused on the robust multinational effort that is going to need to take place to do as much as we can for as many as we can in Gaza the second the conflict is over. So again, I will turn to
respond,
you.
sir?
Yeah, please.
First and foremost, I appreciate your condolences. I believe they're genuine. I genuinely do. This is not sarcasm or anything like that. I genuinely believe they're genuine. With all due respect, it's one thing to call for a ceasefire. It's another thing to sign off on a bill that is continuing to fund this ongoing oppressive, genocidal,
Well,
terrorism.
we're gonna have to agree to disagree on this point, because if you break down the amounts of money in there, there's $9 billion for humanitarian aid that is gonna be used
I'm sorry to interject, but there was no condition for the military package that was sent to Israel. There was no condition for more aid.
Can
being allowed
I
into
finish
Gaza.
my sentences, and now I'm
Please.
happy to turn
Please.
on to you. As the president has said, so Congress spends, right? The executive branch is going to determine how they're going to spend this, right? The president just a couple hours ago spoke to this, said he wants to use the bulk of those funds for Gaza, also to be used for pain that people are experiencing in some other parts of the world too, right? In Sudan, in Haiti, and Somalia. That $9 billion will go in part to Gaza.
What about
to
the other
Palestinians
17?
And others.
What about the
So
other
if
$17
the other-
billion?
So a chunk of that, a bulk of that is for defensive reasons. You saw Iran.
This is not something.
Okay,
Sorry,
well,
Basically,
interject,
I'm sorry,
again,
you're,
so-
you're feeding them before you kill them. You're saying something from your mouth, like, I call for a ceasefire. That's what your mouth is saying. And yet your hands, they're voting to send more money to the oppressive genocide.
Again, I don't want to get into an argument.
There's some kind of internal
Just- I
conflict.
wanna
excuse me,
interject on
can I
speaking.
respond to both?
Right.
If we're going to have this conversation, I'm going to not speak when others speak. And in return, I ask for the same, because that's the way that
We
this is
have to
gonna
be
be.
brief about this
So
to-
sorry, I'm actually, I find this rude, because you've given us a
Okay.
very short window, and you said you want to hear from us.
I do.
And now you're upset when we've listened to you at quite a lot of length, and then we've asked to
We are
respond.
quite familiar with
So
your
we've-
policy.
We know what your positions are, because you are stating them publicly and you're acting on them, and you haven't really heard our positions.
I was
Okay,
I
so-
was asked a question and I responded. So if you want me to stay silent for the rest of it, I will do that to give you the
No,
remainder
but
of
we
the
would
time.
not, I do not want you to suggest that we're being rude when we disagree with what we are.
It's-
Well, we're
it's
trying
mo-
to explain to you why your words ring hollow to us.
It's more than
That's
fine
all.
to disagree, but
Yes.
I'm saying if I'm asked a question,
Sir, the goal
I'm
is-
going to respond.
But you're-
Sure.
So I will stop
Okay.
speaking and turn it back to you.
I don't want this to be a back and forth about political and numbers. I want you, as a man, sir, genuinely. How much suffering, how many more people need to die,
I
sir?
don't, again, I will go back to what I said before. You asked me a question, so I'm gonna,
Sure.
unless it's a rhetorical
No,
question.
no. Please.
I don't want anybody else to die. I don't want any other suffering.
So how are
and
you
so
going- go
and
ahead.
so what I want is an end to this conflict. You were asking how and as I said previously, I am one of 435 members of the House, one of 535 in the House and the Senate. So you were saying but the system itself is not based on and so what I can do, and which I've articulated, are the things
Sorry,
that I've done.
This is a list
So-
very specifically
Sure.
of what we demand,
And-
of a list of very
Agreed,
reasonable
sir.
things that other Congress people have done. We recognize that your voice is one of a few in the Congress, but
I'm going to say something
any
else
voice is
though. Your
powerful.
vote is one of a few in the Congress, and your votes are what tell the true tale here. So that's what we're struggling with, right? We are sitting with you 5 days out from your voting for bombs. That's what you've done. You've voted for bombs. You voted for them not just in Gaza, but all over the world. So let's be clear. I noticed you had Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s painting up there. I was so glad to see that because I planned to talk to you about him today. Right? He says, the bombs in Vietnam explode at home. They destroy the dream and possibility for a decent America. That's what you voted for. If you have any question about what side you would have been on in the civil rights movement, you know, because you're performing it. You're voting for the bombs. You're not voting for a decent America. You're sitting in a state that is starving for capital. It is starving for infrastructure. My kids go to the public schools in Providence. They have, forget the crumbling plank. I don't even care. They have science labs that are closed and shut because they don't have the resources to actually provide these kids a science education.
So the money that you're sending to Israel so they can drop white phosphorus on elementary schools over there and kill innocent people, we should be using that money to fix our broken public elementary schools here. I'm a former public elementary school teacher, and the school system is broken. Not just the school system, we have homelessness, we have issues with healthcare. That money that's being used to break international law, which is contradictory to US law. You cannot send money to a regime that's gonna break international law, not allow the humanitarian aid in. It's not acceptable. I am just appalled that a representative of Rhode Island, a very diverse community, this is Pawtucket, has a strong immigrant community.
You're talking to an
And yet-
immigrant.
I know, exactly.
So you don't
And
you
so
don't have to
you're-
lecture me on that.
You're a son of immigrants from West Africa, you are a person of color, and it is shocking that you cannot have more empathy for these Palestinians. At the very beginning of this meeting, you said that this is a war between Israel and Hamas. You're wrong. This is a war between the IDF and innocent civilians, women, children, the elderly, babies. Maybe you're not watching the same news channel that I am.
Anybody else? I'm going to hold
I'm-
my thoughts till the end.
If
so
you
I
don't
can let
mind,
everybody
I
speak.
just kind of want to do a little reset because
Sure.
we do want to thank you for this opportunity. We recognize that it is very few to hear voices that aren't calling for the entire elimination of people in Palestine. I'm a first-generation immigrant here in Rhode Island. I lived in the Middle East my whole life. My grandparents were Nakba survivors in 1948, forcibly displaced at gunpoint from their homes. My subsequent family's never been allowed to return to the lands that once we lived in. I was a child in 2006 during the Israel-Lebanese war when they were trying to destroy Hezbollah. The same tactics that are used in Gaza today were used to a well less extreme degree, but I still suffered the trauma from that war. Where I was stuck, I witnessed bombing of residential areas, and it was a deliberate targeting of that to pressure the local population to shift their policy. And we're not here to talk about the ethics of the situation because we all know it's unethical. We're not here to talk about how undemocratic this process is because it has been. The will of the people is to call for a ceasefire and end the funding of military aid. What we're here to say is this is a failed strategy that does nothing but make everybody unsafe.
Mm-hmm.
I have family in Palestine, I have family in Israel. The last thing I want is to see more damage and destruction. We recognize that the only way forward is through a proper ceasefire resolution and a proper peace resolution. Sending more weapons to Israel. I understand your reasoning about defense against Iran, but it's also worth noting that Israel has been trying to instigate and broaden this conflict by bombing the Iranian embassy in Syria, by dropping illegal chemical weapons all over southern Lebanon, by bombing Iraq and Yemen and other countries as well. This goes against national sovereignty and does not fall into self-defense.
We're asking you, sir, to not look at us as numbers, to see us as human beings. All we're asking for is for you to be a representative, to be a leader, something you were elected to do, to listen to your constituents and help end this madness, not continue to add fuel to the fire and continue. It needs to end, sir. I don't know how many different ways we need to explain. I hear you. I know you're only one person.
But I'm saying the same thing. I want this to end.
But
I
you're
want-
not doing what needs to be done to end it. That's the point, okay? We
Yeah,
don't see you as a
okay.
leader. We don't see you as a
Well,
leader,
look,
and that's
I-
shameful because
okay.
you are sitting in a seat.
Again,
there's only
I'm
four
not
of them
trying
in
to
our
lift, I'm
state.
not trying to raise the temperature. So I'm trying to speak as calmly as possible.
Sure.
Okay,
So-
but
so-
I-
so what- so
all
what-
right,
so
but
what
you
I- what
should
I'm
hear
saying-
me
no,
when
I'm-
your calm words
I'm-
are
I'm-
upsetting.
okay,
Right, your
I
calm
say
words
that.
are upsetting because
I
you
s-
want to smile at him and say, "I want it to end,"
Okay, so-
and do nothing to end it.
So,
So
again,
those
so
conversations
my-
you've had,
my-
they're not
my-
effective. Your votes for the
how-
military.
how-
So I want to say one more thing.
Okay.
Our first demand, immediate end to military spending for the IDF, which you literally just did the opposite of on Saturday, shamefully. That is a page out of your own book. You correctly said when there's an ethnic cleansing in Nagorno-Karabakh, that we must end military funding to Azerbaijan in order to send a message, not just to Azerbaijan, but to all our global partners. No one's gonna hear your message to Azerbaijan because they're seeing where you really stand when you pour money into a genocidal partner. And frankly, I don't think you heard what Danny said, which is it's a failed strategy. Hezbollah is stronger than ever. It controls Lebanon today. This kind of strategy does not defeat terrorism. There are many who cynically think the US is supporting it to continue terrorism because that makes money for you and for the military funders who support you and the other congressmen. I'm just putting it there. I'm not saying
so
that's
now,
true.
now,
I'm
now,
saying that's how
when you
people
start to
feel.
question someone's character like that, I encourage you. That is not a bridge-building rhetorical strategy.
I didn't
Uh,
say,
and-
I didn't
and-
say,
and-
I think that, I'm saying that's how. you-
Sir, talk
So-
with me.
so-
Let's build bridges.
so-
Talk with me, sir. Let's not.
Well,
Change.
look. Again, I will repeat myself because I want it to be clear.
Show me.
I want this to end.
How?
I want this to end.
Yeah, how-
I am not a strategist in terms of the mechanics of how it will end.
Can you tell us
So
three
what-
ways you're gonna do that?
So look, it's continuing to encourage and continuing to push on the administration to do as much as they can to push those negotiating towards a resolution. They are sitting there, they are doing this. I am not in the negotiation.
Has that
I'm
not
in
been
the
happening?
State Department. No, sir, you didn't get to talk. Go for it.
How do you encourage, to help Palestine and, to stop sending money when you sign the bill to send money to Israel?
Again, I don't, this is nuance, and if we're gonna speak with, and if
It's not nuanced
look,
though, because
if
it's very
we're
clear
going to- okay.
where the military spending's been going. It's been very clear that 70% of the casualties have been women and children.
And,
That it's
and
been
additional
indiscriminately
conditionality to Israel is something that is extremely necessary to be more directive. The U.S. should most certainly do that. Look, the mission of eliminating Hamas is something that is important, right? It's
Why is it
destabilize it.
Why is it important for the United States to feel the need to go into a sovereign country?
Well, it's
and
is
eliminate-
Israel
and- right.
first and foremost.
with U.S. funding and support, right? With
Because
US
that is a
funding and support.
terrorist. That is a terrorist threat. That is in part driven by Iran.
Uh,
Iran, who is funding
No
Hezbollah,
offense.
who is
Iran did not control what happened on October 7th, and we're not here to talk about Hamas. We're not representatives of Hamas.
Yes. So
We're
again,
here
my
to talk
point
about
is,
the Palestinian civilians
Yes.
who are the ones that are being targeted by the bombs.
I have made this point clear, and I will make it again. I do not think that the Palestinian people who have done nothing to deserve the plight that they are struggling with should have any additional suffering, any additional lives
You're
lost.
funding
So-
the additional suffering.
Okay,
sir.
I
well,
still
no
didn't hear,
offense.
like, I
You
just
are.
wanna hear three concrete steps that you're willing
Well,
to take
look,
to achieve that goal.
every question I've been asked, I don't get to answer.
So let's not interrupt. Let's give him a chance. So three things you're planning to do.
So look, the things that I've said again are continuing to push on the administration to arrive at a negotiated and in coordination with the other partners. Okay, go for it.
I would like to give an example. In 1980, when Israel had
I've
the
heard
siege
this
of Beirut,
example, but again, this is
What did Reagan
this is
do?
2024 right now, so
And
I'm
so
going to
Biden
live
does
in the,
not-
I'm going to
Biden
live in the
doesn't have
contemporary.
any-
We're going back and
I'm going to live in the contemporary. right
Please,
now.
Let's-
please
let's-
finish,
So,
please
no,
finish.
to be completely honest with you, that is not where we're trending towards me finishing an answer. So what I would like to do is, because I do, of course, I have a range of things that I'm trying to do today, and I'm meeting with activists, not just you. I'm meeting with a lot of activists. I willfully will take any meeting because for my constituents, that is my job, right? And I am telling you that is not necessarily the case with members of Congress across the country, and that's something that I hope it means something to you. I know it probably rings hollow because the losses, the deaths have been too much. I get that. But to this particular question, one, the additional pressure on the administration. Two, encouraging additional conditionality for any sort of support that Israel receives. Look, the threat posed by Iran is one that is serious. It's also connected to broader challenges with Russia and China.
No offense,
And it's,
Iran does
again,
not want to
Let
escalate
him
this
finish,
conflict.
let him finish, let him finish.
Iran has been very clear that they do not want to escalate this conflict.
I don't speak for Iran. I work for the United
No,
States
but
of
you're-
America.
you're-
So
you're explaining
so
Iran
you
as
know
a
more
threat.
about Iran than I do.
I do
at
not,
this
sir.
point.
I do not, sir.
So my point is, I don't know but I know that they pose a threat
How do you know that they pose a threat?
because they have already demonstrated that
And does
multiple
Israel not
times over.
pose a threat to other neighboring countries by bombing and
Well,
refusing sovereign countries, which
it
goes
is very-
against international
well,
protocol?
as you saw, a multinational force, including those in the region, were supportive of Israel several weeks ago in downing Iran's attack. The escalation cannot go further.
Yes, because Israel had escalated the attack. They'd wanted
My-
Iran to
uh,
respond.
And
let's
again,
let him
we're
finish.
going to debate over these finer points, and we can do that. But I'm saying, if you want me to finish answering a question, I
We
do
have a-
need to finish.
Go ahead.
So the last thing, and I will wrap here. The last thing I will continue to do is continue to press on those in the U.S. to provide additional support for the civilians on the ground, who again have by no fault of their own, are experiencing suffering because of this conflict. And I will continue to be a voice there. And if that's insufficient for you, I'm sorry.
Have you ever?
Because I know that is where my energy can be best used. I am trying to target that to the highest use. I can't do everything. I'm coming to you with great humility about my presence and what I can do.
Have you ever watched a video of a Palestinian on camera saying, "We don't want your sandwiches. We just want you to stop bombing us"?
I haven't. Again, I don't spend my time, all of my time, on consuming information on social media and such. But what I will tell you that I feel very strongly about this. And I don't know how much to demonstrate that authenticity any further.
This is how you demonstrate.
Well, again, this is what you would like. Again, I would
This
review
is
this.
what
This
your
is
constituents would like,
well,
sir.
No, I have a
The
lot
great
of
majority of your constituents.
I would argue to say I don't know what every single one of my constituents
Yes,
think.
but the great majority does. It's been
again,
very clear
I
what
don't.
the position is.
I don't.
If you
I
look
have
at the
not seen
polls, it's very clear what the
okay.
people want.
Sure, I won't. I
Right.
talk to thousands of people every week, and I will tell you I don't know what everybody thinks.
So
But my
are you aware
point
of the
is-
polls that have been
my-
calling for a ceasefire?
My
Great majority
point,
of.
if you send them to me, I would love to
For-
see the
Do we
polls
have
of
a-
Rhode Island
Forget
on
the
that.
nuance.
But
Forget
again,
the
continue.
polls. Forget everything. You see the temperature outside.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
see.
yeah.
You hear the conversation. You
Completely,
hear
yeah.
the pain in our voices, sir.
Yeah, and I wish I could demonstrate more to you of my genuine concern.
We
This is
don't
not.
actually want your emotional.
I know you don't
concern.
want anything from me.
We don't
so-
want your emotional concern, no, but we want action.
But-
We want action.
But
And he wants
can
action.
you?
Ahmad is saying, I want
you
action.
keep interrupting them.
So I will ask, will you sign the Castro
I am not. I
Escobar
am
letter?
not committing to
No,
any single
okay.
thing right now because of the really.
Will you
I-
commit to reinstating funding for UNRWA?
I would love to reinstate funding for UNRWA. I've already been on the record on that. multiple times over.
What will you do to get that done?
I have to find the vehicles. I think you there's an oversimplification of how Congress operates. And if I could, with the magic wand, do more
I'm not
things,
asking you what
I
Brian,
could.
I'm
But-
saying,
but-
what steps are you gonna take?
Again,
What are you gonna take?
there are lots of steps. Again, we're running out of time, but if you see, every opportunity that I will be able to have to try to get that done, I know that they are the means of distribution of aid in any meaningful way. And so we have to get them the resources they need. But yes,
Representative, do you remember me? I met you in Washington.
yeah, we met at Washington. Yeah, we out on the Triangle.
Yes,
Yeah.
when I came home from that trip, I was very excited. I told my mom, I said, Mom, finally we have a representative.
Yeah.
He has our backs. Palestinians, he has our backs.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very disappointed last week when I saw that you signed a bill. You know, you are.
I didn't sign a bill. I voted
You
for the
voted
president
for a bill.
signs
I
bills. But
apologize.
yes.
I apologize for that. Yes, you
Yeah.
voted for a
Yeah.
bill that would help kill Palestinians, sir.
Yeah.
And when me and you had our conversation, you seem to have had our side.
And I've said the same thing that I will issue the refrain. I do not want anybody else to die.
I know, but
I
you're not doing anything to
realize
help
that.
us, though,
I
so.
realize that. But and you also know that bill was. You subtract my vote, the bill still passes. So I just want to be very clear about that point.
Sir, I wanna be respectful of your time.
But what I'm saying is, I voted the way I did because in that Israel supplemental was $9 billion in humanitarian aid, also funding for defense. If this escalates, that does not make anything better for Palestinians. We all know that. So my point here is, I will, whatever levers I have available to me, I will pursue. There is a great desire from, I know this to be true from most in Washington, most in the world, to end this. And again, the levers that are available to me to ease pain and suffering, I'm gonna pursue every single time. And that is what I'm going to do. And every vote is difficult. I don't sit there and think that this is simple, yes, no, up or down. I try to think about the consequences. I try to think about what the implications of what we're doing are. And again, we may not end on the same side of what tactics. I get that. But it is my goal in every form is for this to be done so that people can start to rebuild, so that people can have a semblance of life. I don't take any pleasure out of the way that this has progressed. And so I've heard things like, I don't have empathy. I don't, have compassion there. There's nothing, look, I realize that it is your feeling. You can say that, but that's not how
None of
I
us
am.
are arguing that you have no empathy. We're
well,
very grateful that you've.
I've heard quite the opposite.
No one in this room is saying that. We're very grateful that you took this opportunity, as mentioned. We're very grateful for the work that you have done. We understand that it is difficult and challenging given the fact that the different lobby groups do push you in a certain direction.
Lobbying has nothing to do with what
we
where
are
I land
asking
on
very
positions.
specific things that are very reasonable that others of your colleagues have followed through on this list. And we encourage you
And
to
I'm
to
going to
review
review this.
it.
I'm going to review this
We
list.
encourage you to review it
And we
and
will
to
we
reach
will
out to us
be
and
in
meet with
touch.
us. And
Yeah, certainly.
one last thing, which is
Mhm.
obviously that is happening, which is the Gaza Solidarity encampments
Mhm.
happening all over the country. This would be a great opportunity for you to
Yeah.
show that you care, to show that your support by going and speaking in front of the people and
Yeah,
showing
I'll
your
consider
support.
it, but I will tell you the tenor at some of the encampments hasn't necessarily accorded with the way that
Have you
I
been
think
to
people.
Brown's
No, I'm saying
Right.
I said I haven't
Why
been
don't you
here.
go check it out and
Yeah.
see what the tenor is
I-
like, and
look.
give the people an opportunity to.
Well,
hear
if they're all
from
going to
you.
yell at me like you, I may not.
Oh, am I an
may not go
inappropriate
with it.
tenor? Is that your
No.
suggestion?
I was
You
trying
have
to.
to
I was trying to
recognize
lighten
how
it.
insulting that is
Look,
to
I-
Muslims and to Arabs
again,
to be told
I-
that their tenor is inappropriate. You know
Look,
about tone policing.
excuse me.
So,
What
don't
I
like
would say is,
that.
look, the many Muslims that I have in my own family, my point is this: you can organize, you can be vocal, you can do that
Just come talk to
respectfully.
them. They would love it.
But look,
You
and
would
I
love for a back and forth.
look, I'll see what's possible. But my point is this: as some of what I've seen is just hasn't necessarily been where this conversation should be. Causing more hurt and more pain is not going to end up making anybody feel better.
How did
at
the
the end.
Vietnam
They
War
said the
end?
same thing about the Vietnam protesters.
Again, I'm living in 2024 right now.
Right.
So,
And I
so,
can't
so,
believe it's
so,
happening
so,
again.
so, so
And
I'm living in this
and
contemporary
because we're
moment,
living in
and-
2024,
and-
we're hoping
yeah.
that we could learn from our history
Sure.
and not repeat
Look,
it.
again,
Right.
my point is this, and I will leave you with this as we conclude. I think that it is important to have these conversations. It's the reason that I did it. You have a lot of people ducking them, and they're hard, they're difficult, and too many people have experienced too much pain, too much death, too much loss. It doesn't make me comfortable. It doesn't make me feel satisfied with where we are in this world, and I want to do as much as I can with the levers that I have available to me. And so what I would say to you as I come to you and say, look, tell me where you are. We may not land in the exact same place on everything. And I hope you can understand respectfully that that's sometimes how this works out. But my goal remains the same, along with, I think, the bulk of my colleagues, certainly on the Democratic side, that this ends, that we
Sir, this
try
is-
to rebuild, and that we are doing it with great compassion and sympathy for people who have lost so much.
This isn't a Democrat issue. This isn't a Republican issue.
Well, I said Democrats because I can't speak for the Republicans.
Understood.
That's
I'm not
my
asking.
point.
I'm asking you to speak for yourself and for
Which
the,
I just did. Which I
and for
just
the
did.
constituents
Right.
of Rhode Island who are asking. This is a humanitarian issue. Enough
Completely.
lives have been lost.
Mhm.
Enough people have died, just like you said. We're asking you to be a leader, to do your part, to end this madness.
Yeah.
It's not. We're not asking you. Enough. We don't want the political pander. I'm not trying to attack your character. I genuinely believe you want to do the right thing. I'm asking you to honor what you're saying today
Mhm.
and do that.
Completely. And look, with the avenues and the levers that I have available to me, when I ran for this office, and I'll go back to this, what I thought about was my upbringing, Sisson Street, right down the street, my own life experiences, my mom as a nurse, my dad owning a liquor store. I'm not in this I didn't come from the pedigree to be doing the professional politics, right? I did it because it's the thing that I thought that I could invest my time, my energy in to maybe make things better in whatever way that I had available to me. So, why the character bit matters to me is because I'm new at this. I'm not one of these people who's Teflon, right? I genuinely want to be able to feel the suffering that a lot of people experience and do what I can about it. And so I take your charge. I will certainly use what I have available to me, and I also invite you to continue this level of conversation with me. Where we are now, even if we're not in the exact same place, is at least driven towards the same outcome,
Can we,
which is this ending.
So as a young politician, I think it would be really.
I don't like politicians, but you can call me.
As a young
That's all right,
representative,
yeah.
is a representative better? As
No,
a
it's
young
fine, I'm just messing
representative,
with you,
you have hopefully a lifetime of achievements in front of you. And
With that
um,
is these goals.
the fact that if you look at what's happening on college campuses these days and the feelings of the young voters
Yep.
that are, between 20 and 30 years old, these are going to be the voters that follow you through your career, and
Well,
so
I don't do
as
politics here, so I
as
don't
a
worry about votes
representative-
here.
As a
Yeah.
representative, voting is important so you can keep your job.
Yeah, yeah.
And if the majority of the voters are realizing that this genocide is a horrible stain on American history, this is going to go down in the textbooks, beside many other atrocities. You don't want this to follow your record or to be at the beginning of your record. You need to be on the right side of history.
Yeah, well, I don't put my electoral fate as I don't do that in this office, but I hear you, the point that you're making. And again, this is why I think it's important to at minimum, right, is to have these conversations, is to let you share with me what you think that the path forward is. You know, again, I may not do exactly the things that you accord with, but I'm going to try to be as transparent about what's in my brain as much as possible in doing this work, and we'll let the elections do their own thing.
Sir, in all due respect, I mean, you are an elected representative of the state of Rhode
Yeah,
Island.
completely.
Your goal is to do the will of the people of the state of Rhode Island and to better help the people of Rhode Island.
Completely.
My wife's a public school teacher. She's been a public school teacher for
Where
10
did she
years.
teach?
Alvarez. And I don't know if you're aware, but
I know Alvarez,
it is
mhm.
leaking toxic
Yeah.
chemicals, right? The other schools in Providence have closed. Hundreds of our teachers displaced and closed due to lack of funding. When we see funding that's being used to bomb schools, universities, hospitals in Gaza, recently at the Al Nasser Hospital, mass grave with 300 nurses, like your mother, tied up behind their backs and then executed, field executions. This is war crimes. This goes against the Leahy laws. This is in clear violation of everything that we should stand for. We're coming here to try and find solutions. If you're not willing to work with us here, you witnessed the uncommitted vote, which happened with minimal resources and no time. We will find someone else that's willing to work with us.
Sure, and I don't talk about elections in this office. And democracy is such that if people want to raise their hands up and run, that is something that is a virtue of our system, and I encourage that.
And we're
But-
hopeful
but-
that we can work with you and we don't
Yeah.
have to get to that point.
Again,
We're
and the
hopeful
wa-
that you can go and speak to the
So what I,
protesters
but what I
and-
can,
and
let me
explain
finish.
how you're gonna solve the
let-
solution.
Again, let me just finish
Please.
here. What I would say is, again, working with you starts with having these conversations, hearing what you are saying. Again, I will tell you, and I'll be very transparent. I told you about transparency of my thinking. I may not do the exact specific things that you want. I will never do that for every single member, all 550,000 people of the First Congressional District. Where it starts with is listening, where it starts with communicating where I think there are opportunities to actually yield outcomes, because I'm not a showboat, I'm a workhorse, right? That is one of the reasons I was in this. I never ran for anything before.
We're very hopeful for
Right.
your words. Your words, we're very hopeful for everything you're saying.
Exactly.
We're very hopeful.
My point is, I'm a workhorse, not a show horse, right? I never ran for anything before I did this last year. You saw all these other people who were elected to things before. Why I got into this, again, is the values of doing as much as I can with the abilities that I have for the people that I've known my whole life, right? I've lived basically within the same 3-mile radius my whole life, with a couple exceptions when I was working elsewhere. And so that's what I'm connected to, right? My sense of this place, of people, from every aspect of this community is why I'm here. And so when I say that I want to be representative, when I say those things, I say that with a huge sense of responsibility to the people that aren't just numbers to me, the people that I know and care about. And I care about all of you. You're my constituents. You may not ever chat with me or sit in the same room with me again, but I do have a care and concern for you. That's why I'm doing this.
And we're asking you to show that care and concern very directly.
You were gonna say something.
I want to be respectful of your time. You've definitely given us more time than
That's all right. That's all right. I hope we told
you.
the
You
other
asked.
people that I'm late.
You mentioned you want to listen to your people and be representative of your people. You're hearing some of us now. You have people on college campuses now. You have polls as they've outlined now. Phone calls. Thousands of people have called. I'm sure your staff has alerted you. Hear us. Listen to us. We're asking you to see us as human beings. We're asking you to help end this madness. Enough is enough.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good to see you again.
See you on College Hill.